Good morning. So, today in geomorphology, physical geology, and geomorphology, we are going to learn about wetland ecology. Previously, we had covered the the wetland formation, how wetlands are formed. So, just to go through a brief, what are wetlands? Let's understand first that wetlands are areas of marsh, fen, or peatland or water, whether natural or artificial, or permanent or temporary in nature. So, with water that is static or flowing, and fresh water or brackish or even salt water are included in these wetland ecology. Okay, so it can be marine, that is brackish or salt water. The depth may vary from very shallow to very deep uh, waters. Okay, so there are many types of wetlands. To distinguish wetlands based on mineral soil wetlands, that is marsh. Okay, then we have swamp, uh, we have organic soil wetlands, that is we have fen and bog, and we have deep block being very deep in water content, and fen having small potholes like water content with thick vegetation over the water body. So wetland types are like, it is ecologically similar type of wetlands are referred to by different names throughout the world. So where somewhere we call it block, somewhere we call it swamp. So different areas are known for different names that are given. Like in America, uh, swamp areas are also known as Picocine. Picocine lands, which is a swamp areas, a swampy marshlands. Okay. Now, two main significant bases and in which a comprehensive wetland classification system is done or developed are the process by wetlands are made, or wetland inventories are calculated and management are done. Okay, so that is like Crowding's classification system that we have done. Crowding's classification system had contributed in traditional terminologies and systems of distinguish between wetlands and deep water habitats. Now, the how deep water even Crowding also had explained that the traditionally the term wetland has not included into deep permanent water bodies. So Crowding had given this his ideas on wetlands in 1979. So nevertheless, the scientific organization, the importance of the holistic approach of classification of wetlands. Therefore, in their classification, they have included both the types of determination, like five main systems, that is marine, estuarians, river, or lacustrine, or polystrian type of wetland areas, which are furthermore divided into subsystem or classes or subclasses and dominant classes, right? So that we have done in our previous lectures, right? Then we have Ramsar classification of wetland. Okay, Ramsar classification system of wetlands. Wetland types are that, as per the Ramsar classification, we have coastal or marine wetlands. That includes permanent or shallow marine waters, in most cases less than 6 meter deep, and at a low tide, including sea bays and and stairs. Okay, so then you have another sub classification under marine or coastal wetlands. We have marine subtidal aquatic beds, which includes seagrass beds and tropical marine meadows. Then class C, that is coral reefs. Then we have rocky marine shores, that includes rocky offshore islands and sea cliffs. Okay. Then we have E classification, that is sand or singular or pebble shores, including bars and spit and sand islands, including dunes and systems in the humid dune slots. Okay. So then we have F classification of marine wetlands, that is estuarine waters, that is permanent water of estuaries and estuarine system of or the deltatic ecosystem. Then international intertidal mudland, that has lot of sand and silt flats around in intertidal mudlands. Then intertidal marshland includes salt marshes and salt meadows. Then it rises from salt marshes that includes tidal brackish and freshwater marshland. The I variety is intertidal forested wetlands, which includes mangrove or swamps, or nepals or swamps, and tidal freshwater swamps. Basically, mangroves type of swamps are intertidal wetlands. Mangroves are basically on the estuarine or deltatic region, but there are napes and other nape swamps which are under the big trees have the swamp like areas. You can come across this type of wetlands in America, that is the Florida has this type of forested wetlands. Even some parts of Amazons also have this type of forested wetlands. Then we have coastal brackish saline lagoons, brackish to saline lagoons with at least one relatively narrow connections to the sea. The coastal freshwater lagoons include freshwater delta lagoons and karst and other submarine hydrological system and marine coastlines. Then you have inland wetlands, that is permanent inland delta or river permanent river streams and creek wetlands. Then seasonal and intermediate or irregular river systems and creeks that provides a wetland. Then permanent freshwater lakes, like lakes and ponds are including large oxbow lakes and large waterhole areas are permanent freshwater wetlands. Then we have seasonal intermediate freshwater lakes, that is in season it gets flooded, and during dry season it gets almost dry, so that is a seasonal lakes. Then permanent saline brackish or alkaline lakes, like you have Sambar lake is a saltwater lake or brackish lake water lake, where you have many a very rich ecosystem. We will talk about it. Let's we just go through the briefings first. Then we have seasonal intermediate saline brackish water and permanent saline brackish water from the marshes and the pools. Then seasonal in intertidal brackish water. Then we have permanent freshwater marshes like Bharatpur sanctuaries. Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, Bharatpur region is a freshwater marshland. Okay. So these are there are many, there are almost Z variety of brackish water or so Ramsar classification of wetlands. Then Ramsar also classify man-made wetlands, that is when we have fish farms ponds and irrigated lands and seasonal flooded agricultural field are all part of man-made, or lakes or dams are all part of man-made wetlands. Okay, so then we also know how to classify wetlands based on source of water, ecological similarities, and topographical positions. Okay, just hold on 1 minute. Yeah. So that is what wetlands are. Now we have gone through the various forms of wetlands. uh, as it implies that there are wetlands such existing on the all fringes or borders of the water bodies, like whether it is lake or it is river or it is ocean or sea. Topographically, low-lying areas or wetlands are interface between land and the water. Now, some good wetlands may have large developed wetlands that stores water, floodwaters, and helps a lot in reviving flora and fauna to survive. Once there was a time where wetlands were considered as a wasteland, but in gradually it was realized due to urbanization, and most of the getting converted into urban and agriculture or industrial lands. Recently it and the importance are highly understood by as how productive it is in terms of ecosystem, and has been recognized by people in several countries regarding the wetlands are to be restored. So, hence, it is necessary to understand the environmental conditions of the wetlands. So, in the here we will follow some aspects of discussing, that is the overview of wetlands. We have given the types of wetlands, hydrological conditions, biological functions, and system scientific conditions or specific conditions of a wetland. So let's again see that wetlands are defined as a land in a low-lying plain dominated by hydric soil, inundated or saturated by surface water or groundwater, and promoting only hydrophytic vegetation. So these zones are found between dryland and waterlogged zone along the edges of the streams, rivers, lakes, and coastlines. Wetlands are integral part of watershed. Their position in the landscape is influenced by the characteristics of watershed. That is, wetlands are characterized by the characteristics of watershed. That is topological low, permanent inundation, and hydric soil, or reducing environment and absence free of oxygen within the soil profile. So hydrophytic vegetation is sh- uh, at shallow and deep waters. Wetlands can function as a nutrient sink, temporary water storage areas, groundwater recharge areas, and critical wildlife habitat. So, natural topographic human induced activities within a watershed induce a function of, natural wetlands. So, for example, when we talk about wetlands, by changing the hydrology of a wetland, the water is rendered and sediment and attenuation of function can also be lost and resulting in downstream hydrological and water quality impact or vegetative species in and composition within the surrounding. Um, a, a wetland might change resulting in habitat quality and quality changes. Topologically, they are saucer or a bowl shaped depression, and the surface area will change as water is added through rainfall or precipitation or any form of precipitation and loss due to evaporation and plant evapotranspiration and deep seepage into the underground. The saucer shape feature tend to be temporary and seasonal, with large area exposed as water is lost. Okay. So based on this, the sources of water, like it can be precipitation, it can be groundwater or water body, which like lakes and rivers residue, can be part of wetlands. Now bowl shape uh, features tend to be a more prominent or a permanent, with a smaller exposed area as water. It is lost by providing long-term water to support bird species and amphibians. Wetlands are inundated or saturated within major portions of the root zone, usually within 12 inches of the surface during the growing season. Right. So the prolonged presence of water creates conditions that favors the growth of specially adapted plants called hydrophytes, and promotes the development of characteristic wetland soil called hydric soil. Wetlands can be found in nearly every country and all climatic zones. Some wetlands are mm, all of the time, some wetlands of all of the time exist, and some appears on during the dry, and most of the time during the post dry season. The type of wetlands, that all wetlands are not alike, that they are varying depending on the location and the watershed, and also the with the preference of the abiotic factors. The difference in the characteristics, like hydrology, water chemistry, biological function, vegetation, site specific factors. Then you have climate, geology of the region, and landscape position and soil. Okay. So that creates more type of wetlands. So these factors are not independent, but forms a complex interrelationship to make each wetland a type and a unique one all by itself. So based on their physical properties, that is geomorphological conditions, chemical and biological characteristics, wetlands are classified into various types. Okay, what are the various types? uh, we have inland wetlands and coastal wetlands. In general, two categories we identify, that is inland and the coastal wetlands. All right, just a minute. Okay, so inland wetlands are non-tidal environment, and coastal wetlands may have a tidal influence. In land wetlands include inland freshwater marshes, peatland, deep water swamps, and riparian wetlands. The coastal wetland includes tidal salt marshes, tidal freshwater marshes, mangrove wetlands, and inland wetlands are most common on floodplains along rivers and streams, and also in isolated depression surrounded by dry lands. They are found along the margin of the lakes and ponds, and in other low-lying areas where the groundwater intercepts the soil surface, or where the precipitation is more to saturate the soil, always. So, inland wetland includes marshes and wet meadows dominated by uh, mm, herbaceous plants, swamp dominated by shrubs, and wooded swamp dominated by trees. So there are these are areas that are characterized by sluggish or standing water uh, that can create an open water habitat for some wildlife. Okay, just hold on. So, coastal wetlands are areas bordering coastlines, and they are closely linked in some estuaries and deltatic region where the seawater mixes with the fresh water body from from an environment, or forming an environment of varying salinity. So the salt water and the fluctuation of water level due to tidal action combine to create a rather difficult environment for most plants and animals. So many shallow coastal areas are unvegetated mud flats and sand flats. So the Crowdinger's classification system used a salinity creation of 0.5 part per trillion, ocean drive salinity, to differentiate between estuary and water freshwater wetlands. The difference in salinity will be reflected in the species composition of plants and animals. So wetlands are further divided into different types based on soil types and plant life. They are like bogs, fen, swamp, and marshes. Bogs are an acidic peatland. Bogs are freshwater wetlands form often in old glacial lakes characterized by spongy peat deposits, evergreen trees and shrubs, and flow covered with thick carpet of spargium mosses, or basically mosses. A fen is a freshwater peatland with chemically basic groundwater. This is rough me or an alkaline basics, the groundwater, and this means that it contains a moderate to high proportion of hydraulics ions, and that is the pH value is greater than the 7. So when the pH value is more, it is more ionic, in characteristics. This is the ion based water. So fen are covered mostly by grasses, sages, reeds, and wildflowers. Freshwater marshes main feature is its openness, with only few growing or emergent of plants. It may include grasses, rushes, reeds, sage, and other hibiscus plants. So possibly with low growing woody plants in a context of shallow waters can be also found in these areas. A coastal saltwater marsh may be associated with estuaries and along with waterways between coastal barriers, island and inner coast. The plants may extend from reed to middle brackish water of Salicornia and other wise bar marine muds. So it may be converted to human uses as pastures and for salt productions. So the swamp is wetland with more open water surface and deeper water than a marshlands. So in some countries, like it is dominated by trees and woods and bushes rather than the grasses and low herbs. Like in Africa, swamp may be dominated by cypress type of vegetation. It's a type of a elephant grass, like tall grasses, cypress. So cypress is also used as a pepper. Hmm. It was used in ancient times. So mangrove swamps or managil you know is a salt or a brackish water environment dominated by mangrove species of trees such as Sanoriata, then Sundari tree has given the name of the delta Sundarban. The intertidal wetlands provide an excellent example of invasion, like modification and succession. The invasion and the succession process is established to sea grasses. These help stabilizes the sediment and increases the sediment capture rates. So the trapped sediment gradually drops into mud flats, and mud flat organisms become, establishing, encouraging other life from changing the organic composition of the soil. So tidal wetlands are further classified into subtidal, irregularly exposed or regularly flooded tidal plains. So a subtidal is permanently flooded with tidal water, and irregular exposed areas are land surface is exposed by tides, often than the subtidal region. The regular flooded tidal water alternates flood and exposes the land surface at least once a day, right? So that is a irregular flooded area. So whenever there is a tide, upcoming tide, it gets inundated, right? In irregular flooded areas like tidal waters, water floods the land surface less than often, like areas on the coastal fringes can get inundated in furthermore interior due to the storm surges or tsunamis or any of the storm related surges where the tides are so high and it gets inundating into furthermore interior of the land. And so this phenomena will happen in an irregular pattern, so that's why it is called irregular flooded area or land, which is less obvious that the it will get regularly fed by the tidal waves. So non-tidal wetlands are permanently flooded areas. Like firstly you have permanently flooded waterlands. uh, you know uh, these water covers the land surface throughout the year. In all year the vegetation is composed of obligated hydrophytes basically. So we have hydrophytes in these regions. uh, you know um covering as a vegetation. Intermediately exposed areas, the surface water is permanent, is present throughout the year, and except in the year of extreme drought. So in extreme dry or drought season, these are get devoid of water bodies. So throughout the year there is water in the in the water body, and once there's a dry season or a drought like situation comes, it almost gets dried up and exposed to the outer elements. Now semi permanent flooded surface waters persist throughout the growing season. In most season, has it basically dries off. So when the surface water is absent, the water table is usually at or is a very near to the land surface. The seasonal flooded areas like surface water is present in the extended period, especially early in the growing season, but is also absent by the end of the season in most of the year. So when a surface water is absent, the water table is often near the land surface. The saturated or this subsaturated rate is fully saturated up to the specific region, and during the sowing season, but not surface water in the uh, as it is seen. So temporary flooded surface water is present for brief period of periods during the growing season, but the water table usually lies below the soil surface for the most of the season. So intermediate for flooded plains are areas that substrate is usually exposed and surface out. The water is present for a variable period without detecting seasonal periodicity. So weeks, months, or even years may in, intertwine between the period of inundation. The dominant plants, community under this regime may change the reference to the change in the soil moisture. So now, if you see, because of this, there are many things that are coming about it on its changes. Now, artificial flooded areas, amount the duration of the floods are complete are controlled by means of pumps and siphons in a combination with likes or dams and canals. So vegetation present cannot be considered a reliable indicators of the water regime. So water wastelands are permanent in some places or seasonal in some places. They may be wet and only periodically it is inundated. So the quality of the water present in the interim of the presence in part determines the function of the wetlands and its role in the environment. So hydrological condition in these wetlands are abiotic factors such as salinity, soil oxygen level in the soil, availability of nutrients, and so on and so forth. So deep waters and the natural hydro fluoride in the land wetlands is also directly influence vegetative composition on the destiny, and accumulative factors and organization accumulation, nutrition cycle, and availability, and the type of different type of aquatic and terrestrial flora or fauna are coming up. So the storm water is inflow into the wetlands and can discreetly affect the natural hydrology of the wetlands by changing water depth and alter the hydroperiodic of the ecosystem, right? So then we go on to the impact of storm waters or runoff. So the impact of storm water on the water quality is what wetlands are dependent on the volume and the composition of the stormwater, the population funded in the runoff from the urban areas that tend to indulge again sediments and oxygen, determining substances, nutrition, heavy metal, and pesticides and hydrocarbon are onto one of the factors of the in flooding. All right. So the important the impact of the storm water is on the surface. The change in turbidity or oxygen level and water temperature in the wetland can have a direct impact on flora and fauna. In the wetland, the addition, this assimilation of heavy metals, pesticides and hydrocarbons associates with uh, stormwater runoff with flora and fauna in a in a wetland can result into negative impact to the ecological characteristics of the wetlands. uh, Each of these period of saturation or dry out in the wetlands have strong implication for the characteristic struggles and they developed in wetland. Then these known this is known as a hydropic feeling. So each and every wetland type exhibits a unique hydrophobia. So the hydrophobia is defined as periodic or a regular occurrence of flooding in a settled sense of conditions, right? Just a minute. Okay. So hydrology is most important factor in establishment and maintenance of the wetlands and their processes. Precipitation, surface water inflow and outflow, groundwater exchange, and evapotranspiration are the major factor influencing the hydrology of most wetlands. So, biological functions are wetlands are often called as nurseries of life, and they provide a habitat of thousands of species of aquatic and terrestrial animals and plants. Aquatic plants are called hydrophyte plants or hydrophytes, living on or under the water surface, require numerous special adaptation, and these plants proposes these features like hydrophytes have several severe characteristics that a thin or acute and cuticle of familiarity functions of uh, cuticles in the preventive water body. Those must those must see the hydrophyte have no feet or or cuticles, right? So stomata that are open from the most of the time, so water is abundant. The means of the what do you call this water waste wetland management is that it has to understand what are the areas that are inculcating or the factors that are affecting the frequency of the wetland rises. So the amount of nutrition and primary productivity are ideal for the development of the organization that uh, you know uh, from the basis of the food web, and feed many species. So wetland provides an unique and critical habitat for thousands of species of animals and fishes, and also that of birds and amphibians and mammals on the earth. So there are three different vegetation types. One is the uh, cactail, Brussels sage, that is arrowhead water lily, blue flag, and floaters like common awkward weed. There is then we have pounded wheat, is almost another type of plant that goes in the wetland region. Then peat and can be dominated by red maple or silver maple leaves over it. Okay, so this is all for your wetlands, and we will continue the lecture for the next class. Have a nice day.